How many people are coming?
There'll be 4 of them.
Richard, Linda, this is Jay and Gail Perry.
Thank you for agreeing to meet us.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna leave you alone. Let me know if you need anything.
You say you want to heal. Is this how?
We're not here to attack you, and we promise that. We want to know how this happened. We need your help with that.
I'm willing to help.
When you talk about blame on your part, I want to know what you're referring to.
It's very hard to answer.
Well, please try.
It's not just one thing.
Tell me about your son.
What would you like to know?
Everything. I want to know everything.
Why?
Why do I want to know about your son? Because he killed mine.
It's not our fault, Richard.
Sorry. Someone else is arranging the computer for me. Look, you got a problem.
Not at all.
On the laptop, it kills me. I have the same stuff at home. I'm a complete techie geek. I have a full studio, and now I'm just using a laptop microphone in it, and I got to tell you, it's upsetting.
It's just a prop. It doesn't do anything. It's just, I don't know. It came with the, and all this is behind me is a green screen. It's not actually, would never, well, cheers. Cheers. Nice to make your acquaintance.
Nice to meet you. Good morning. You're my first interview of the day, so be gentle on me.
So I sure will. Well, I think this film, requires a gentle touch, frankly. The talking about it and the subject matter behind it. Yeah, one thing that occurred to me as I was watching it, I thought, I was in New York City I grew up there and I've lived there most of my life. And then in the last year or so, I was one of those cliche people that just sort of decided to take a break, and sort of go through the pandemic outside of the city. There were other extenuating circumstances. I bring it up because I felt and then Broadway closed, but I was always very connected to the arts in New York City. And I just thought, did I miss this play? This is a play. This has to be a play, because it felt like a set piece. It felt like the perfect kind of play. And the difference is, and I bring it up because it's of this point, which is that it a lot of times when you convert a play, it feels, or adapt it to the screen, it feels like that, and it feels like it feels very I don't know, like they're trying to
film. Is that what you're saying? That when people adapt plays, often you can sense its roots.
Yeah. Here's a case where I just thought, wow, they did an exceptional job adapting this. But as I read about it, this was written for the screen.
Yeah, I mean, look, I might be proved wrong, because who knows, some Broadway producer might pick it up, but I don't think this is a play at all, because the camera knows your secrets, and the camera is inside these people's hearts and minds. It knows where they're lying. It knows where they're in denial. It can see the things that they're not saying, in the tiny gestures between people, things that will be lost in the theater.
Interesting.
The theater, you'd have to stand up and walk around and block it. Most of this film, it occupies an enormous landscape. It's a huge story set in a small space, and that story is inside their souls, inside these people's hearts, and only the camera can probe that.
Yeah. This role had to kind of use all of your your complete set of acting muscles, I have to imagine, especially your character Jay. He's wound very tight. There's a lot there's a lot that he has to juggle in those relationships, because he seems like he's a pleaser. He's a
manager. He's a
manager. Okay.
Like Kazan said, men don't cry, actors do. This is a man who is not going to cry. This is a man who, when something terrible happens, turns it into activity, turns his rage and pain into something he thinks is constructive. He looks at his wife who's falling apart. He thinks he can manage her. This is 6 years after something terrible happened, and I don't think he's dealt with it. So Yeah, I mean, I've been acting for 30-something years, and I've done an enormous variety of parts, and this was one that required everything I've ever thought I've learned, and to let all that go and try and be. I mean, it had to feel more real to me, to all of us, than anything we'd ever done, because we owed it to people who not only have lived through tragedy, but have the bravery to do what these people are doing, because these are real meetings it's based on, but have the bravery to confront the people they feel wrongly or rightly are responsible for what's ruined their life. And it's
or that can provide them with answers that might somehow make sense to the complete, make sense to them.
Well,
right? I mean,
you're right, but I think he's a very smart man, Jane. He's very rational, he's very logical. He can see that, his activism is what he's channeled this loss into. But there are things that can't be explained and things that can't be answered. And to a man like that, when a therapist says you need to go and speak to these people and see what comes of it, that just seems so intangible. Like nothing good or useful could come out of it. He can see that his wife is told that it might be useful for her. So he comes along, he makes up some rules. He's got a list of things from the therapist that she should and shouldn't say. He just wants to control everything. And what you can't control is the human heart, is pain and grief and the rage and acceptance that you can't, some things you have to let go of, and difficult lessons to learn. And it was difficult, it was rewarding, challenging. I don't know what the right words are as an actor. It was everything.
And they have to deal with he seems like he just wants a great structure, of course, and then also make sense out of the senselessness of what happened, and of course the violence of the world he can't control at the outside world. It's a violent world, and
what he doesn't want to recognize is that he's human, and that carrying rage, carrying hatred, carrying blame, these things only poison you. They don't affect the world, they don't change other people, they can't change the past. All you can affect is your day and how you're feeling and your future, if you can let go of some of those things that cripple you on the inside. But he doesn't see that, and that's the great brilliance of Fran's writing, I think, and the catharsis of being in the room with these three extraordinary actors and extraordinary characters as well, is that he's taken to places he doesn't expect, and that's what great drama does.
And it is a great drama, Jason, and it's so rare. Well, it's just refreshing. As difficult or as much as this film requires or asks of you as an audience to, it's so great that films like this are made, and that people will have an opportunity to see something like this, a real opportunity, to see some great acting.
Sorry, I was just going to say it's a strange. I didn't mean to interrupt. It's a weird Zoom connection, but it's just odd parallel to draw. But in my head, there's room for adult grown-up dramas. This isn't something you can go to and be thinking about where you're eating afterwards, and it affects you. I've seen it with an audience now, and they are utterly gripped. They're taking on an enormous emotional journey, and they're exhausted, they're drained. Hopefully, they feel slightly uplifted by the end. But it reminded me, not that I was there, but 20,000 years ago, when the Greeks gathered in huge arenas to see their own their life of war. They've been at war for 80 of 100 years, and they would gather and watch these plays written by Sophocles, by the generals, and they would see enormous tragedy played out, not to wallow in pain, but because it was cathartic for them. It's an enormous.
I was going to use that word.
Humans need that. We need to see these things played out and feel them played out and feel that there is closure or something towards a complicated closure. To plug in to the flow, the ebbs and flows of real human life, not Hollywood simple answers.
Well, 15 minutes together is to discuss some of the tangential subjects around this film, like gun violence in this country in particular. Is not enough time, of course, to get into it, because
So, the film very carefully and deliberately is apolitical. So although my character clearly outside the room has issues around all kinds of, legislation stuff, the second I bring it up, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your show. Can you beat me out? But anyway,
yes, I could, or just curse along too, maybe.
Okay, well, but there's a point at which I try and turn it back into something I'm comfortable with. My wife, played by the brilliant Martha Plimpton, goes, "I'm not here to discuss fucking politics." And that issue is laid to rest immediately because that's not what we're in the room for. So it really is not a film that deals with the politics with a big P of
well, it's often used as, especially for a character like yours, it can be used as a crutch or as a way of just, again, distracting from the healing and the recognizing the rage within and dealing with it. I mean, so you turn to things like politics and other things in order to distract yourself. Makes a lot of sense. It's beautiful.
I do think, it doesn't deal with politics with a big P. It certainly doesn't deal with anything to do with guns or shooting or schools or anything. It's really about blame and rage. But what it does deal with, in a way, tangentially, is this, how enormously divided America is. And so, because it's a story about people getting into a room who have demonized each other in their heads, who blame, or certainly myself and my wife, and it blame these other people. We find them at fault. We think they are responsible for many of the things wrong with our life. And you don't need to look very far in America or in Britain or anywhere to see increasingly polarized societies where people have so demonized the other that they just don't see them as human. And if the film is a plea for something bigger outside the specifics of the characters, it's connection and seeing each other as human.
Let's take the lead of the story and of what we're talking about, which is not that it's not an overtly political story at all, and talk about kind of the dynamics of in terms of acting. You have Ann Dowd, yourself, Reed Birney, and Martha. You mentioned Martha Plimpton, and as an actor, you had to deal with all these other characters and their intentions, right? And you had to play off that. So that had to be very, very challenging because here you are with what the things you wanted to express, and yet often, as you said, you have to manage those things around the other characters and their intentions. How is that experience?
Well,
if I was articulate.
No, that is the heart of the drama for me, for Jay, is that he's there, he thinks, because his wife needs to be there. He doesn't recognize how much he needs to be there or that he could get in. So I'm trying to manage what she's supposed to say and what I think she's supposed to feel, and looking for signs that maybe, because our life is unbearable outside the room. And then when Martha and I would be, it wasn't really rehearsal, we'd be building a backstory for ourselves. And so on a simple level, we try and work out what were the things that we had said in the car that we are supposed to say in the room, and what are the subjects we're supposed to avoid, and the trigger words we're supposed not to say. And we couldn't agree on them, Martha and I. We'd be arguing about that, knowing in the back of our heads that we were really arguing in character. Because how many people in a marriage, I've been married for a long time, when you say, but you promised this, you said this, and they go, no, I didn't. And you wish you had CCTV footage from the kitchen to bring up, and, or Marshall McLuhan, like in Annie Hall. And so Martha and I had to build a backstory of where our lives have fallen apart, what we'd argued about, what we'd agreed on. And then the greatness of the writing, the reason it's so gripping to watch is, you watch that fall apart. You watch just when one or other of us goes off piste, the other's either pushing them or pulling them back in. And it's as much about their marriage as it is more about their marriage than anything that happened in the past.
It's it's a wonderful opportunity to see some wonderful acting. I mean, and just the level of commitment and the performance, I'm sort of tripping over my own tongue here, but I guess what I'm trying to convey is how moving and cathartic it was as somebody who watched the movie. And I really urge people to see the film and to go through this journey.
I'm assuming you didn't have the chance to go and see it in a theater yet, and I've seen it by myself, or with my family.
Have you?
a couple of times, but I saw it in the theater for the first time the other day. It's a completely different. It's an entirely different thing when you watch it with a crowd, because it's a film about human connection. It's one of the reasons Fran wanted to call it mass. You know, that bodies gathered together, and you know, something else happens when an audience collectively is pin drop silent, or are all crying, or are all relieved and feel the light in the clouds. It's you know, it's I struggle to articulate it, but it is something to do with human connection that you don't get when you watch things by yourself. So I hope that people who are listening to this, if they're thinking they might like to watch it, don't wait. I don't think we even have a streaming deal. It should be seen in a theater with other people.
Well, and I applaud Bleecker Street and the producers that they went this route, that they're giving it the opportunity for people to see it in the theaters, and then holding off on the other options, you know, down the line a bit. You know, I'm certain it will be available eventually, but definitely take advantage of this and go see it in a theater if you want something that has some real meat on the bones. Really something really beautiful.
Trivial stories. I was in a Chinese volcano action movie last year. That things can be fun, but there's room.
There's room for, as you said at the beginning, Jason. It's a matter of there's room for both things. You played Lucius Malfoy. My son's going to be very excited to see you on the screen with me. He's 17, so you can imagine he grew up with the Harry Potter movie. Although we read them first, but yeah.
But it's proper parenting.
Mass will be in theaters on this Friday, October 8th. And we'll put the links so people can find the where it's playing. And we didn't get to the Forgiveness Project, but there's so much I could have talked to you about. But hopefully with any luck, I'll have the opportunity to talk to you again sometime, and it'll be a pleasure. It was.
I feel so privileged to be in it, to be able to bring whatever I've learned in 30 odd years to be of service for a story that is not only gripping and entertaining that it holds you, but has some value. You know, it's a story that puts some value in the world, and I'm proud to be part of it.
Well said. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
And have thank you. And I hope your day is. It sounds like it might be a little intense, but
no, I'm happy to talk
in the best way. In the best way, yeah.
This is something I could talk about all day. I'm thrilled that people like it so far, and I hope a lot more people find it. So, all right.
Me too.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay.